Hello YouTube, Ulrich Zebulon with Zebulon Aerospace here, and today we're going to show you some advanced building techniques. Right now we're looking at the start of my Blothar series heavy lift booster system, and I've just now remodeled it, and we're packing all the components inside this hollow space of the big 3.5 meter decoupler. So under a normal KSP build, what you end up having is all your stuff goes on the outside of your rocket, or you have to have it all inline. In this case, since we're using the 3.5 meter, they don't have a control device that's 3.5 meter, and we really don't need to carry that much other stuff, including our reaction wheels, only 2.5 meter. So what ends up happening is you have to put stuff externally, which can, in this case, make things out of balance a bit. You're using a smaller reaction wheel, which puts undue torque on the device and is not really that strong. So our craft doesn't operate as like we would like it to. Not only that, if we take our subassembly off and we look inside the decoupler here, we have all this empty space. Now, in the world of NASA, that's empty space that could be used for other stuff, and we can bring a lot of this inboard, so we're going to show you how to do that. Okay, to build this, we need to start with the largest unit next to our decoupler, which is going to be this tank right here. We're going to stack it up. Then we're going to add 2 of the largest tanks. And we're going to throw on one of the big motors. Okay, so that's our basic design for this booster. At this point, we need to throw in our decoupler, which is right there. And so this is how normal rockets start. Now, how do you get stuff inside? And it's all a matter of perspective. In this case, we're going to want to throw some batteries in here. But as you notice, I throw batteries, they go on top. And so how do you get them inside the unit, you may say? Well, number one, I'm going to throw that on. And okay, so first thing you got to do is actually get in and break the plane. Oh, grab your unit and break the plane of what you're trying to put it in. And we're not quite centered on this, but let's see here. Oh. And what I'm doing now is I'm setting up the batteries to find the center point of the device. You notice how I'm loading it up here. I got to move this whole tank to the left a bit just for symmetry and making it easier. So we're going to take this and just adjust it just a tiny bit and see if we can, it's almost there. We'll do just a little bit more. About right. There we go. Okay, so anyway, we're back inside. Now we need to add a structural unit, another attachment point. We only want to put one of these on. And you see how this is going? We're actually up above on top of everything, so we weren't inside. So we'll grab that again and carefully beam in, and I am totally into symmetry, so we got to tweak that in dead center. Okay, now I have a strut inside here. And that's one of the things you're going to find is just trying to figure out how to get in here. That's the toughest part, but patience will pay off. Now at this point, we need to throw in one of our reaction wheels, and in this case, it's a big rocket. I want to throw in the biggest one, and you'll see why here in a second. And if I throw that there, perfect. Now you see, just because I got it in here, we're missing all the major units in there. It really doesn't matter, but I'm kind of like into aesthetics and trying to do it the way NASA would within the confines of how Kerbal works. Now we're going to go ahead and throw another strut in here. And this one here is going to be a little bit harder to get in. In fact, in this case, just because of how it's going in, sometimes if you're running into difficulty, the best thing you can do is move it to the side just a little bit, and you can get in from a corner. Move it up, zoom in, up, grab your piece. And like I say, your patience will pay off. Gotta go in just that little bit more, and then voila, we're back inside. Now, once again, you get in there, you line it up, and look at that. That looks pretty darn good. And now we need our control module, and I'm going to go for the this one here. And right there. So lovely. This is how far we got right now. Now, one of the things I found with these larger boosters is the decoupling strength usually is not enough to push things away. So I like to add on a couple of these little engines just to make things a little easier. We're going to put two of them. Oh, no, two of them. And once again, you gotta just squeak inside. There we go, and turn that sucker around. And what I have found with these, when you want to access parts, because we're going to have to turn it, get in just a hair. We're going to want to put it right about there on this, and because I've built this a few times before. And what we want is them just barely protruding out of the plane so we can actually access them in flight. If these things are inside, you can still access them, but you got to go through the same process of getting inside. And when you're up in space and you're like, especially in a time crunch to get things done, that's not really a good thing. Now I'm going to add 4 more extra fuel tanks in here, and what this is this is the extra fuel to deorbit this stage. And once again, we don't want to put them out there. That's dumb. We got all this space in here. Let's put it inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do here, and I'm going to, using the E key or Q key, turn it around, and then once again, just tweak them just a little bit above. So when you're out here, oh, you see this? We're not touching it. It didn't go far enough. We can access that, but that's there. We didn't go high enough. So now we got to get inside. Since we did this, we got to grab them. There we go. And just about there. There, okay. Now we can grab these individually. And one of the things I like doing is I want to make sure that I don't use this fuel. This fuel is strictly to deorbit the device. So we're going to turn all these tanks off. And voila. Now the next thing we're going to do is we need to power it. These the next couple things obviously are going to have to go external. If you put your solar panels inside, it's generally not a good thing. There's no point in doing it, because if they're inside the craft, they're not going to work. And we got all 4 of those. And lastly, this particular design, you'll see in later episodes as I build this thing out. Once again, this is just the base model. We are going to, still trying to get comfortable with the new layout here. Actually, I am loving this new version of KSP. They did a lot of awesome improvements to it. And right about there. And am I missing anything? We have extra fuel, we have batteries, we have a large SAS, we have that, and we have our control module. And next thing we need to do is we need to worry about staging, and which is basically throw our engine on. Oh, and then For simply getting up off the ground, we are going to want to throw in our launch enhancement system. Yep, we got 2, and we'll go ahead and do that. And so, this here is part of my Blothar series of my heavy lift booster system. And since this only has one of these engines down here, it's a 1, and this is the C version of it. And we'll go ahead and save it. Everything should be good, and let's launch it and see what happens. See if I got this right. Oh, but you say we don't have a payload. What's going on with that? Silly guy. Let's go ahead and revert. Let's go ahead and throw a payload on. Revert flight, revert to vehicle assembly building. Let's go ahead and put on, actually, what's our weight? Right now we're at roughly 220 tons. This should get about 30 tons into orbit, which there's better designs. Now you see we're having a bit of problem. It's latching onto these different things. Well, I'll show you how to fix that when we turn it into a subassembly in another episode. So we just added 20 tons to this. And I'm just going to do this real quick, and we'll fine-tune this later. But just to throw some weight on it, this should add roughly about 25 tons to the whole assembly, and there we'll put a good nose cone on it. Let's go ahead and save that and launch. All right, so here we are. Let's go full throttle, throw our SAS on. Oh, we have a staging issue. We'll fix that in the hangar, but for right now, just keep things moving. We'll do that. I think we're all good. The new version of 1.2, oh, that's the other thing. The fuel, how fuel goes out of the tanks is completely changed. If you guys didn't know that, there's a priority aspect on here. Right now we got equal fuel coming from all these tanks. But let's go ahead and throw this up just because it's kind of cool. I normally like running Kerbal Engineer Redux is my favorite, and we don't have that, so it's a little harder to get into orbit, but we still can do it. We're pros here. And we're lifting off full throttle. And I will probably time expand this. Or to time expand. I'll speed this up not to bore you people. And no fuel's coming out of this tank, which is what we want. This is a heck of a lot harder with that smaller SAS unit. This larger one actually makes it so much easier. I mean, we still got a lot of weight on this thing. I sure like having Kerbal Engineer Redux to give you your readouts as far as Apple apps and whatnot. Makes flying so much easier. So after some fiddle farting, we're back at 100,000 meter circular orbit. And now for decoupling, first thing we're going to want to do is turn this stage off. So we're going to go ahead and shut that engine down. We're going to go ahead and decouple. Throw this on and throttle up, and we got the engines. Now this isn't quite so prevalent now, but on the larger units we're going to have more fuel in these tanks, and the separation is just terribly slow, so this just speeds things up. So now we got a good separation going, and just because you notice we still have quite a bit of fuel left in these. We could have probably got close to 30 tons into orbit, but in this particular case, we put 25.1 tons into orbit. Like I say, we could probably put a little bit more in, possibly up to 30. Maybe it's only about 28. But anyway, that's how that works. So anyway, now that we're here, I want to demonstrate to you that the fuel tanks. Okay, so is that one empty? No, that one's got the fuel. So let's turn that one off. We're going to take this one here and turn those fuel tanks off. We're just going to only go in here and see we have zero fuel. Now here comes part of the brilliance of all this is we have these little tanks here. So one of the other neat things I like about this new version, we can just lock that in place, load this up, transfer, get all of this out. We got 4 tanks to do that with. And there we are. Now all we need to do is change our trajectory. Now as you notice, once again, we are in a just slightly less than 100,000 meter thing. Our little separation dropped us down a smidgen, but that's okay. Main thing is we want to demonstrate that this works. So we have that off. That's right there. That's got some fuel. Okay, so let's go ahead and reactivate this engine. This is the other part of the beauty of all this. We want to turn these off, so we'll shut down that engine and shut down that engine. And by having them protrude a little bit, it just makes it easier so you can grab these in flight. All right, so let's go ahead and do our burn. And whoa, that was not much. Did we deorbit? We sure enough did. 37,000 meters. That's enough to deorbit it. So now at this point, you guys are probably asking yourselves, how do I make this into a subassembly? Because if I go ahead within the Kerbal and I do this, you can't take these parts and throw the whole thing in. So how does this work? Well, for that, you're going to have to stay tuned for another informative episode of Kerbal Advanced Rocket Building. And just remember, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Have a great day. Bye.